Mr. Balkenende, welcome to Singapore. Welcome to the Centre for Liveable Cities. As part of what we do in the centre, we try to capture and share practical knowledge about livable and sustainable cities. And we are happy that you are here with us in Singapore so we can tap on your experience. Now, you were the Prime Minister of Netherlands for 8 years. You are a business leader. You're also a professor. And I think you have worked closely with the NGOs. I'm sure you have a deep understanding of each of these stakeholders. Can I ask you for your views on the roles of each of these stakeholders, the government, the businesses, the university, and the NGOs in shaping our cities, in making our cities livable and sustainable?
Yeah. Thanks for receiving me. It's great to be in Singapore. I like the city, I like the state. I've been here many times, and you can learn a lot of Singapore. So that's my conviction. You spoke about my different roles, and in fact, governments, universities, knowledge centers, NGOs, they all have to do with quality of life. And when we talk about quality of life, that means what about the future of our children? What about the future of our planet? And the issue of quality of life is of course connected with the future of cities. And I think it's a fascinating item because we can see so many changes. People are interested in the development of cities. And then the question is, which role can every actor play? Governments are there for making things possible, for regulation, for planning activities. Universities can develop knowledge, and we need new knowledge, we need new inventions, etc. We need businesses, we need companies to deliver products, services, but also to stimulate the entrepreneurial spirit which we need. And we need the non-governmental organizations, the civil society organizations, because they are involved in issues around quality of life. And I think the key element today is how can these actors work together? Let me give an example. When I was Prime Minister, I also chaired our innovation platform. When we talk about innovation today, it is about the right cooperation between governments, knowledge centers, and businesses, and also the NGOs. And we call this triple helix. And you can be very successful if you are working together in the right way. So therefore, every actor has to play its own role, but there's a common challenge, and that is about improving quality of life.
You mentioned sustainability. You know, here in Singapore, we admire the Dutch for many things, and one of these is how we have dealt with water. About 2 years ago, I had the chance to visit Netherlands. I was introduced to the concept a bit with nature. I visited Maasvlakte. I was told that Schiphol Airport is below seawater, and it kind of struck me how you have managed to overcome the challenge. Now, can you share something with the rest of the cities? What is behind the Dutch thinking in dealing with water? And I hope this will help cities deal with climate change and more broadly deal with sustainability.
It's an excellent question. Talking about water and the Netherlands. If there are natural disasters in other parts of the world, usually people say, let's bring in the Dutch. And why make people such a remark? Of course, it has to do with our knowledge in the sphere of water management. And it has to do with the history of the Netherlands. We have had a struggle against the water already since 1,000 years. More than 1/3 of our country is below sea level. And we had a terrible water flood in 1953. More than 1,800 people died because of the water flood. So that led to the conviction that we have to protect ourselves. And then we start with a plan called Delta Plan. And that meant we have to strengthen our dikes and dunes, and we have to be aware of the risks of water. And that led to a lot of new knowledge in the sphere of water management, and that's what you can see today. At this moment, we have a threefold problem in the Netherlands. The rise of the sea level. We are aware of the risks of climate change. We can see the melting of the ice caps in the Alps, and it leads to a more vulnerable situation regarding the supply of water in our rivers. And you can see that the soil bit going down. So these three things combined means that we have to work together in order to find the solutions for living with water in our environment, in our country. That led to a lot of expertise and knowledge. We have great institutions like Deltares. Our technical universities have expertise. And for us it is a matter of protecting yourselves against the strength of the water. And that's the reason why we're able to live below sea level. I myself, I live in the neighborhood with the lowest point of the Netherlands, -7 meters. But you also understand that if you do not keep intact your dikes, it also can lead to huge difficulties. So we are aware of the risks. We are investing in strengthening the quality of dikes and dunes in the country. And we try to export, of course, our knowledge we have.
Now, quite apart from sustainability, I think one of the other big challenge that the world is facing is diversity and social issues. There's question of integration, question of the rich and the poor, the same concept of collaboration and partnership. How can that play a role in helping us bridge some of these social challenges?
Yeah, it's always important to talk about the social challenges. Let me go back to the 19th century. That was, in many European countries, the time of the class struggle, the struggle between labor and capital after the Industrial Revolution. Of course, we have had our difficulties in the Netherlands, but I think we always were able to overcome these difficulties. Instead of having a class struggle, we always have underlined the necessity to work together, to cooperate. So instead of the class struggle, we had the organization of the labor market, we had the cooperation between employees and employees. After the Second World War, let me give another example. Of course, it was a terrible time after the war. And then people said together, we must have a very moderate wage development in order to build up our country. In the 80s, we had huge economic difficulties. Then employees and employees together said, we must work together in order to find the solution. So it's the part of the Netherlands to work together. We spoke about the strength of the water, the fight against the water. That was a matter of cooperation. And the social issues is also a matter of try to work together. That also means that you mustn't have too big gap between the richest and the poorest. Therefore you have tax policy, etc. It's also on companies to create jobs. So if you want to solve the social issues, you must have the mindset to tackle these issues by creating jobs, by creating opportunities, training facilities. When you are considering what's happening in the cities, also invest in social projects. Try to avoid a situation that people do not feel that they have no chances. So there must be the dimension of the willingness to work together in order also to create opportunities for people, and that people have the conviction, I'm part of the country. And if people have the conviction that they are excluded, when they have no possibilities, then you will get difficulties. And I think we can learn from each other, talking about the quality of life and also stimulating such an environment that we have chances for everyone.
Just on the last point, maybe I can follow up to ask, from what you said, obviously the trust among the people and between the stakeholders is very important. How can you build or strengthen this trust in society, in cities?
Talking about trust, of course, it reminds me of the famous book of Francis Fukuyama. It was about trust, and he said high trust economies, high trust societies, high trust companies are performing better than the low trust ones. And I fully agree with him. Trust is a moral category, but it has also a huge economic and social and financial dimension. You have to be aware of the importance of trust. And if trust exists in society, it will lead to better results. And I think people in the Netherlands understand that you must have trust. That's also the reason why people work together in protecting the dikes and dunes. That is the reason why people work together in the 17th century, because we are a seafaring nation. It was also a matter of working together. That was the reason why people said in the 19th century we must avoid a class struggle. So all these elements clarify that if you have trust between the government and the civil society organizations, between employees and employees, between the professor and the students, it will lead to the right atmosphere. And if there's a lack of trust, then you will not find the right solutions. Today, you can see there is a lot of attention for innovation and startups. If these startups are not supported by the bigger companies, they will have difficulties, because startups have brilliant ideas, but usually they don't have the financial means or they don't have the networks with other companies. So if you can have the right cooperation between the bigger companies and the startups, then it will lead to the right results. It's also a matter of trust. So are you completely right? If trust exists and is organized in the right way, then it will lead to good results.
Thank you. Now come to the last question. the Dutch has influenced very heavily the way that Singapore has developed. I think you know that we have gotten a lot of help from, for example, Dr. Winsemius in early years. I was told that our first concept plan was also influenced by the Dutch model. That was in the 70s. In the same way, now Singapore is trying to share our own experience with other cities, whether it's in Asia, in South Asia. I know you're a frequent visitor to Singapore. Can I sort of draw on your views? Are there things that we do here that's interesting to you, that you think will be interesting for the rest of the cities?
Well, I'm sure there are many things in Singapore that is really a source of inspiration for others. At the time when I was Prime Minister, I was also chair of the innovation platform. And then of course we could choose to which country we would go. And we decided to go to Singapore to learn from your experiences in the field of innovation. I've seen also the developments in the Marina Bay area. And I'm really a supporter for everything that's happening over there. It's fantastic to see that you can develop a new part of the city, and that's not only a matter of realizing new buildings, offices, hotels, apartment buildings. It's also about having green areas. It's about social projects, etc. I think the combination of all these things make that you can have a livable city. And it's so key that we can learn from experiences here. I'm also chair of the International Advisory Board of Rotterdam. It's also remarkable that constantly we have people from Singapore in that International Advisory Board. Why? Just because we can learn from experience here in Singapore. I'm very active in the city of Rotterdam, and you can see Rotterdam is a city that's reinventing itself constantly. When you are realizing new buildings, then suddenly you can see it will change the whole city landscape. And it's not only a matter of building activities, it's also creating jobs. It's about the fact that people can feel happy in the city. And I think that's what you can learn from a country like Singapore. So therefore, I always advise people to learn from Singapore. And what you've said, I've been here many times. My brother lived here for 5 or 6 years in the 80s. I was 4 times in that time in Singapore. I was here in my capacity as Prime Minister, and now I'm in the business sector, and again I'm in Singapore. And always, it's good to be here. So I want to congratulate you with the results you've achieved. And I really hope that we can further strengthen the ties between Singapore and the Netherlands.
I think there's a lot of similarities between the two countries, and I think there's a lot more room for collaboration. I think we'll be very happy to work further with Netherlands in mutual exchange and also to sharing with the rest of the world. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.